Yeah, I'm not seeing any more movement. I think everyone is here.
I think this is it too. So, hello, welcome to Family Book. My name is Sarah. I'm a librarian here at the Haggard Library. We also
And I
have
am and I am Trey. I'm also a librarian here at Haggard. Thanks for joining us tonight.
and we also have Eric here in the chat. He's going to be here to help pass along any questions you may have or share links out. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please pop them in the chat and Eric will help get those answered or passed along to us for us to answer. Um, Otherwise, let's get started. This might be a little bit longer than an hour. We have a lot of content to get through, but I promise it'll be interesting. So tonight, we have a few learning objectives. First, we're going to discover the characteristics of a well-written family book. We're going to identify the types of family books that you can write. We're going to discover different types of printing and or publishing methods for once you have your full book created, how you get a physical copy of it. And then we will explore self-publishing versus traditional publishing options and the pros and cons of each of those. Okay, so getting started. There are some good general tips to think of when you are starting to plan your family book project. The first thing that you're going to want to do is to define your project. Who or what will this book be about? What overall theme would you like to convey? Make sure you review all the material you have and then figure out the story that you want to tell before you start writing. It's really going to help you get a clear and consistent story and keep all your research organized as well. Don't replicate what's already been done. Focus on the stories that have not been told yet. If you have one of your relatives has already done a book creating your full family tree, why would you go do that again if they have already done all of that work? Maybe you could tell the stories of the people in the family tree instead of just like the factual information. So consider those sort of things. And lastly, consider your audience. Who is going to read this? Is it going to be your family, or would you like to do it for a greater genealogical group? What are they going to find interesting or engaging? Another great tip is just to keep it in chronological order. Sometimes simple and straightforward is going to be the best for the reader. You can use dates to help keep the narrative in order and help readers know if the information they're looking for is in your book. If I'm trying to figure out town records from Plano from the 1930s, but your book is about Plano in the 1890s, I know that your book is not going to have the research that I am looking for, or the information I'm looking for. Have an editorial eye. You don't have to include every piece of information you have into a single book. Focus on the information that strengthens your story and fill your book with the best of what you have. If you have a lot of information, maybe you write multiple books. Um, but if you can focus on one story and pare things down, that story will be told in a clear and concise way. Choose quality. That's what this image here on the screen is hoping is helping get the message across. So you might find an image that you really, really love in your research, but when it's enlarged, the quality diminishes. At that point, don't use it. This is part of having an editorial eye as well. Having a big pixelated image will detract from your book and will make it look less professional. So if you can, find other ways to illustrate the theme and your book will look more professional. And if you would like, you can make it readable in one sitting. people are more willing to pick up thinner books, especially if this is something you're writing for your family. Cousin Joey might not really want to read a 600-page tome about all the minutia of the family, but if it's a short little book about one specific ancestor and their trials and tribulations, maybe that's something they're more likely to pick up and then get into your family history. So, keeping all those things in mind, what are some characteristics of a well-written book? The first thing is quality research. Accurate research that is presented in an easy to understand manner is going to be the most important thing, especially with family history books. These are historical analyses, I guess. You want to document the facts for future researchers, not opinions. Once you have all that research, you also want it to be attractively presented. If you have well organized and easy to understand information, more people are going to want to use your book or want to read your book. This also includes smart use of images or documents to highlight the aspects of your ancestors' life, like photographs, maps, charts, but again, always making sure that they are high quality enough images. If you can, go beyond these records, though. If the family member is still living, ask them for stories or memories. Personal touches like this will give that something extra and something special to your book that other people won't have in theirs. If somebody, 100 years down the line tries to write a history of your family, they're not going to have, your grandma sitting there with them as well. So save those stories. They're really fun to go back and read, even for you personally. And if you can, create a thorough index. This will help readers find the information they're looking for in your book. People, places, and then the page number. And you will do this after the manuscript of your book is complete. Since we are writing a family book, using a recognized genealogical numbering system, for example, the standard pedigree numbering, is really important. So people will have some sort of idea of, um, have a standard idea of how your family is laid out. So normally you will start as number one. All of the males in your family will be on the even numbers. So you can see on the chart on the right, number 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 are all fathers. They are all the paternal line, or all the fathers. But you have your paternal and your maternal lines. And then all of the odd numbers are the females in your family. Okay, so now you kind of know some generalized thoughts, some things you should be keeping in mind to create a well-written book, but there are some final questions to consider before you really start delving into your work. First off is, what is your goal? Um, why are you writing this book? We kind of discussed this earlier, but who is the audience for the book? Are you writing this just for your family, or does it have the potential for a wider audience? Would you like it to be sold in bookstores or possibly available in libraries? Factors like this are going to influence how you will print your book and then ultimately how you write it as well. I know Trey's going to talk to you some about the different types of books that you can create.
All right. So some of the types of books you have in your mind, you want to create your family story and put it in book form to share. Um, and you think a book's a book. Well, yes and no. You've got some options to kind of consider and think about depending on your content and what you've found. First one would be you might consider a photo book. Um, A photo book is a short book that focuses mainly on the pictures, the images that you might have. You might have some uh, photo captions where you can identify the person or persons in the photo, or might tell a small vignette or provide a quote from a maybe a conversation or diary entry for the individual, something like that. Then you have a narrative book, so a little bit longer form book that's mainly text. So that's like Sarah had mentioned. Maybe you keep a keep it short and something readable in one sitting. Maybe a short narrative book like that. And then you have the family history book. So that's kind of a balance between the photo book and a narrative book. These kind of broadly speaking here. So you're going to have a narrative storytelling element to the family history book, but you're also going to maybe tell some of those stories or back up some of the stories or document some of the stories or some of the information presented with photos or images of documents, primary resources, or something that you might have. All those kind of little elements you can consider. So we're going to first take a look at the photo book. And so a photo book is really ideal for a single subject or focus. Um, Images will have short accompanying text, like I had mentioned, so like a photo caption to show what the picture is or who's in the photo if known. And some examples might be a family recipe collection. So you scan in images of the handwritten recipe cards. That's a fun one. It might be an heirloom collection. So you have digital images of family heirlooms and keepsakes. Maybe descriptions of their origins, how they've been passed down, why were they important to you or the family members that have provided their stories and images of the objects. You might have focus in on a specific family reunion. So, a large family gathering, you have photos from the family gathering where you get everyone identified, um, maybe some genealogical information. Somebody had done some research and did a short talk with family about what they had found. Maybe that's something you want to capture and document with the family reunion. Obviously, what new additions to the family have occurred. Um, then you might have a biographical or a memoir type uh, photo book. So that's going to focus primarily on a single person or family. You'll have the photos of the person, the places they live, maybe some historical records, biographical details, and some general text as a kind of a personal memory or personal narrative. So when thinking about the images, as we mentioned earlier, when showing make your editorial decisions and make your choices, have an editorial eye. Consider the resolution of the image. So a lot of times you might find some old family photos that were really tiny, almost like the wallet size um, photos, like school photos. And those are great because they might be the only photo in existence of that relative, right? Or your grandparents, um, or a distant cousin. That might be all that survives. But consider when you're doing your book that small little element, if you blow it up to do a large picture book, it's gonna kind of pixelate a little. So you really want to look at a minimum of a 300 DPI when you're scanning. This image on this slide has a good example, something that's been scanned at 600 DPI. And this is kind of a um, small, I guess we would call it a cabinet card um, photograph. So um, I have no recollection of what size this originally was, but this image is shown scanned at 600 DPI, so it's big enough we can blow it up and not really lose any detail and crispness to display on this presentation slide. But if for the one done in 72 DPI, and that's DPI means dot per inch, you can see it's kind of pixelated and kind of fuzzy, and it's not very clear. So kind of keep those items in mind. You always want to scan at 100%. So if you scan something larger um, than it needs to be in your final product, you can always make it smaller without losing quality. So own something really, really small, like that wallet photo. You want to scan it as large as you can within reason. 600 DPI is probably a good starting place because you know you're going to try to make that a little larger to fit in into your photo book. So should scale larger nicely and not lose image quality. And I just to remind, we have scanners available here at the library. We have a number of different flatbed scanners, and we have the big, large book scanner if you have the scrapbook size pages that you're looking to scan, and we have flatbed scanners on the public floor, and also with the PPL locations that have the DCS digital creation spaces. So if you're looking at a narrative book, so this is a traditional text-based book, tongue twister. Um, this tells more of a complex, in-depth story, right? So you can have a few pages, or sorry, a few images, but the emphasis is going to be on the writing. So perhaps examples of this type of choice in your book is may have an ancestor biography. It portrays an ancestor's life within the historical context of a particular time or place where they lived. So maybe not, if you don't have all the material, maybe not telling the whole story, their entire life's arc, but maybe tell an arc of when their time in service or um, a period of a summer that you have very much documented in some event that they participated in at some point in their life over a 3-month period, one summer, something like that. Um, Maybe it's a numbered genealogy. So it's more of a traditional family history. You're publishing the family trees or your list of everything that you've researched and found to document everyone's place in the family tree. Identify all known descendants from one ancestral couple. Um, of course, that can include the pedigree charts to help readers keep track of who belongs to which branch. And just remember to use a standard numbering system to help with cross-referencing who connects to whom. Who connects to whom? One of those. Um, then there's the family origins. Focus on one family, their life, their migration patterns across the country or from one country to another. And then you could also have an annotated journal, diary, or letters where you've annotate those. Um, those have been done. Um, I had an aunt that did something similar to that for some things and when her mother's collection, and that was very helpful. It put things in context of where this came from, why these events and these pieces of ephemera were important. It could be transcripts of family documents, uh, and then feel free for this to use literary elements like a plot or characterizations and themes to tell ancestor story, kind of in a more engaging way, but still keep it historically accurate. And then that kind of segues over to the family history book. And as mentioned, this is a balance between a photo book and a narrative book. You're going to integrate genealogical records and photos with your narrative text. And examples, it could just be a standard book that traces the ancestry of a person throughout time, through their time. Uh, Start with the most recent person and work back through time. It could be combinations of that, where it follows ancestors and descendants of one couple, um, Or you could simply do the descendant tree and descendant list and follow descendants of one couple, kind of like the narrative book, right? But then this family history book's going to incorporate more photos, more documentation, examples of maybe diary entries, scrapbook pages, or components of scrapbook pages. You probably wouldn't be able to fit an entire scrapbook image onto your book size without losing some detail because you want people to be able to see the original detail, right? So a style, regardless of which one of the three broad kind of types you're considering, because you're going to have to review what information you have available to you, what other family members may be able to contribute, how much time you have to do this, right? But on your style considerations, maintain a consistent style. Something that's easier to read, maybe something that's more professional looking. Um, and when we're talking about that, we're talking about maybe page layout, your grammar, spelling, punctuation, um, keep a consistent style, your font and the point size, how you number your pages, use of abbreviations, be consistent because you need to consider your audience ultimately in that. Okay. And
Yeah.
now Sarah will talk to you about some printing methods.
Okay. So there are a number of ways that you can print your book. Unless you're going to try and take it to a traditional publisher, most are going to fall under this self-publishing category. And we're going to get all into the specifics of these in a minute. If you would like a step above self-publishing, there is such a thing called assisted self-publishing. And then we have the traditional publishers. So for self-publishing, the pros are there are a variety of ways that you can self-publish, as noted on the last slide. You have a different level based on of quality based on your different needs. If you're doing, a quick rough draft for yourself, you don't need to go to a professional publisher and try and get an agent and a job and all of those sort of things. Um, you could just do it by self-publishing. However, there are cons to it as well. You are going to do most, if not all, of the work yourself. Hence the name self-publishing. You really have to do it yourself. And that is the biggest con, especially because it is very, very time consuming. But let's look at some of the different options and why you would or would not consider them. So the most basic version that you could do would be printing at home. The pros are this is the simplest method. Everything you need, you should already have to print at home, or maybe at your local public library. We would have a lot of those things as well. A computer, word processing software like Microsoft Word, a printer. Uh, and then if you wanted to, you could always, use a 3-hole punch and put it in a binder. This is um, really good for a small quantity of books or something that you're going to do for personal use only and just maybe want a physical copy of instead of a digital one. And it is immediate. You will get a draft of your book within a few minutes of clicking print. It might take a while if depending on how long your book is. If it's a 300-page thing, that's going to take a minute, but you would have it short. The cons to this method are the quality of home printing. That is really going to depend on the quality of printer that you own, the type of paper that you buy. If your ink runs out halfway through, if you're doing a really heavy photo book, that's going to take up a lot of ink, and ink can be expensive. So think about that. You are also limited to an 8.5 by 11 size, unless you have a printer that does larger sizes, but even that 8.5 by 11 is large for a book. That is your standard sheet of paper, not a standard book size. It's not good if you're trying to do a large quantity of books, and it can be costly if you're printing a lot of pages or several books. Like, because like I was saying, you're paying for the cost of the paper and the ink and the strain on the printer. So again, yeah, if you just want like a draft copy or you just want something for yourself, this might be a really good option for you. The next level of service would be your basic copy and print services. The pros on this is you would get a bound copy of your book that is professional looking, and you're going to get a better quality of prints than your printer since these are professional print services. They are relatively inexpensive compared to sometimes, yeah, the amount of ink that you have to buy, or some other places have like minimums of how many copies you can get. So you might have to pay more since you're getting you would have to buy multiples. So print services, you should still be able to only print one or two if you just need a couple of them. Good for a few copies or for personal use again. And really takes minimal effort to print. You really just take your completed document to the print shop and then they get it printed and bound for you. The cons of this can be sometimes they are flimsy. The example on the right, it is just like a little spiral bound thing. Not the sturdiest, but sturdier than some printed off pages and like a binder clip. They won't stand up over time. If you're trying to really make an archival copy of something, I wouldn't recommend copy and print services. Not good if for large publications, like if you have a lot that you want to print, or sometimes different sizes. Um, Bigger sizes would be harder to do. And oftentimes you have a lack of options. They'll give you some options of type of paper or size, but you're limited to by what the company has. But sometimes this is still more options than at-home printing and maybe will still satisfy your needs for your project. So where would you do this sort of stuff? This is talking about like your office supply stores, like a FedEx office, Office Depot, Office Max, Staples. All these places are what you would consider your traditional like copy and print services. So you can look on their websites and see what sort of options they have if this is a route that you would be interested in taking. The next level of service, and we're starting to get into some really fancy options, but it is called print on demand. So this is exactly what it sounds like. There are services where you can submit your full manuscript and cover all of that, and they will print copies of your book that they are paperback, but they are a actual really cool physical book. So one of the pros with this is that you have total creative control. You get to design your layout, your cover design, the size of your book, all of that you can control. This is a higher quality than your print at home or copy store services. Some There are rare print on demand services that will print hardcover, but most are only going to print paperback. The quality is comparable to a trade paperback. I've printed off a couple books before and they feel like a real book to me. And with these, you can often get an ISBN, a barcode, an LCCN, which is a Library of Congress call number, control number, I believe. Trey, correct me on that. uh, and
I
copyright.
don't remember off the top of my head.
I think it's Library of Congress control number. It is something that many places require. If you are going to sell in like a bookstore online or if a library will own it, you will need those sort of things. And oftentimes there's no minimum to print with a print on demand. You can print anywhere from 1 to 1,000 copies on the machines. There are definitely some cons with these though too. Although it is a pro that you have total creative control, it can also be a con. You have total creative control. This is that, again, that self part of self-publishing. If you aren't good with computers or don't have like good visual skills, like with placement or layout and things like this, then maybe this is going to be a lot harder for you to try and do a print on demand. It is more time consuming and an in-depth process to create a book since you are the one having to create the content and then work on the layout, the formatting, scanning your images if you're going to use those in your book, doing some editing and proofreading. And then once you have your manuscript complete, you still have to design the cover as well. Sometimes it can be costly as well. Um, a book, a single book for personal use is not normally expensive, but if you're planning on selling the book, all of the extras, like we were talking about, the ISBN, the barcode, wait, the barcode doesn't, ISBN, the LCCN, copyright, all have an associated cost with those. So that can add up, but hopefully if you're trying to sell this to bookstores or libraries, you'll have multiple copies and can uh, try and recoup some of those things. You can also hire a freelancer to do some of these for you, but again, that would cost money as well. And then you'll have to market, sell, or distribute the book yourself. If you're wanting to get the item into stores or libraries, you are going to be the one doing all of the legwork. Oftentimes, libraries won't accept an item if it doesn't have multiple reviews, professional reviews from like Kirkus reviews is a big one. So you would also have to work on doing that yourself as well, getting those reviews. So it can be tedious. So where would you print on demand? There's a bunch of different places, a lot of different options. Kindle Direct Publishing is Amazon's print on demand service. Lulu.com is another one that we found. They do have a minimum requirement. Barnes& and Noble Press is Barnes& and Noble's, obviously. Ingram Spark. Ingram is a major book publisher, and they do have a on print on demand service. My Canvas is Ancestry has a print on demand service. You can import your family tree and related documents directly from Ancestry if you have your own personal Ancestry account. Unfortunately, I don't think it works if you are using the library's Ancestry library account. Um, However, just to note, once you import the family tree and documents from Ancestry, you cannot edit the text of those. So sometimes there can be questions there. And then also you can check with the Frisco Public Library. They have what was called the Trailblazer Press. It's still up on their website. If you go to their website, they have a machine that is very similar to this one in the photo here that prints books on demand. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to, our lovely neighbors to the north and see if they can give you some more information about that service. If you want, in addition to or instead of, um, you can make an ebook out of your manuscript. One of the biggest pros for doing this is that it is low or no cost. There's a lot of free options available online for you to make your text document into an ebook, which is awesome because that means since it is a digital file, if you want, you can have an unlimited number of copies of it. You can do it at home if you have a computer. And then you can, if you wanted to sell it online through Amazon or other places like that, uh, you can do that as well. Or if you just wanted to be able to distribute it to family members who live states away, but you don't want to go through all the hassle of printing out copies and making sure they get sent off and mailed and the costs associated with that, you can just send them the ebook copy and they can read it on their own personal devices.
Sarah, I think we have a question from the last slide.
Yes.
Which library was it?
Frisco Public Library. So if we have time at the end, we can show you their website with the Trailblazer Press information. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay. So cons to ebooks. There's a lot of really good pros to them, but some of the cons could be not everyone can access it easily. If you're making a book for your 90-year-old grandmother who doesn't know how to use a computer, she won't be able to easily read it. This again is considering your audience, like we talked about in the beginning. Um, Also, be wary of the lifespan or the shelf life of the format. Is this a format that's going to be around forever? So, for example, do you still have any floppy disks lying around with old documents on it? How would you access those today? Uh, I There are ways to, but I don't have the technology to do that, even if I do have old floppies lying around. So just think about that. Same will apply for ebooks. The same formats that we're using right now might not be the same formats that we use in 20 years. So maybe this isn't the only way that you create and share your book, but it might be a nice one to have. So how do you create your own ebook? There are plenty of free ways to do it. You can actually, in Google Docs, export your Word document file as a ebook, as an EPUB file, I believe. Calibri is a free software as well that will help convert it, and Sigil ebook is another one. If you would like some paid resources, there are places like Kindle Direct again, Amazon's publishing, or Ingram Spark that, as part of their print on demand services, can also help create ebooks. Okay, and then now Trey's going to talk about some of the more traditional and assisted publishing methods.
Yeah, so now we're going to segue over into the assisted self-publishing. Kind of a funny way to phrase it, but there's some pros to this. So publishing services with expertise in genealogy or family history might be a really good go-to place to maybe answer some of your questions about formatting or preparation of your work. Um, they may have some, though it may be a paid service level, they may have some assistance they can provide with writing or book design, production, distribution, those kind of things. So various levels of service. It's customizable based on your needs. Um, do you just need help with production and distribution? Maybe they could help. Or do you need more services? Those are kind of some considerations and kind of the pro side of the assisted self-publishing. And then the con side, there are some cons. Um, you might be required to have some minimum number of copies that need to be printed. So you have perhaps a little bit more financial outlay to reach their minimums. Digital levels, or I'm sorry, different levels of service from different publishers. I can't talk all of a sudden. The cost is based on the amount of help you need. So it's kind of a la carte of sorts. The more services they provide for you, the more expensive it's going to be. And also, where can you find these assisted self-publishing options? So as we mentioned, genealogy and family history publishing specialists. There's Genealogy House as one example. Otter Bay Books is another one. And Legacy Books are three examples of specialists in this area of publishing. Also, some general assisted self-publishers are Author House and Book Baby, which I've never heard of until recently. So as we move into more traditional publishers, let's say you've got an ambitious project that you're decided to do because you've got enough material, you have written a stellar narrative family book that may have a wider audience because your family has done something or witnessed something of importance, historical importance or cultural significance at some point. It may be something an interest that you to the broader community or wider country audience, perhaps. So you're looking at traditional publisher, and some pros to that is you can produce something that's very polished, right? Think of Barnes and Noble or any number of brick and mortar bookstores out there that you go in and you see this sea of books. Those are traditional publishers by and large. Um, and as part of that, getting on board with one of the traditional publishers, they can help with a lot of different things. They can help with editing. They can help with book layout. They can help assist with cover design. They've got whole departments for that, right? They can help with photo and image scanning. They have um, folks that can help with your indexing if you have no clue how to start doing your index. Um, how to prepare your files for the printer, doing all the make ready work, getting it ready for printing. Um, and also they have since they'll have kind of a more of an invested interest in you and your publication because they want to make money off of it too, right? They're going to help with warehousing and distribution, perhaps. So this is really appropriate for books, like I said, with a wider historical perspective. Um, and this is the big time. This is the top dogs, right? The major publishing houses like Macmillan, Penguin, Random House, HarperCollins, all of these type examples. Um, and the more people that are going to want to read your book, the higher chance you can get it published by a traditional publisher. Some cons to that. So some cons, many of the publishers will not accept a manuscript without an agent. It also may require a minimum number of books to be printed. So it's like many other things, it's a con. You may have to um, project to have to pay for or expect to sell a certain number of titles in one fell swoop. So many publishers will not accept, as I said, with a manuscript without an agent. They won't even consider printing your book if it isn't sent through an agent. Finding an agent, that can be tough. That can be a whole different class on how to get signed in with a book agent on its own right. Um, and they're not going to spend all of their time and resources to print you 20 copies of your family book in this circumstance. You're looking at normally hundreds of copies or more in order to go down this path. So it has some benefits. You get a really good polished end product that you can share with a lot broader audience, but you're going to have a lot more, maybe some expense up front and some expense in the end. Some other considerations. Regardless of what path you may choose, you got some additional costs. Like, do you want an ISBN number? That's the International Standard Book Number. So that uniquely identifies your book, and if you want to get your book out into a larger audience for sale, whether you choose to do it all yourself or an assisted publishing or a traditional publisher, the the ISBN number is going to help facilitate the sale of your book to bookstores, be it physical or digital version of your book, and it'll get it in libraries. So that'll help manage your book's metadata, ensure that the maximum discoverability for your book. More people can discover the book, more people can sell your book. The barcode, as the slides describes it, it's the geographical, the graphical, can't read either tonight, the graphical representation of ISBN and the price. If you want to get it in stores to a wider audience and you want to sell it online, wherever you want to sell it, besides just giving it away to family for gifts, you're going to need a barcode that includes the price, because that's how places sell. That's their bread and butter. They want to sell your product. You need to give them a barcode that includes the price so they can scan it into their digital point of sale systems and be able to market and sell your book. And this answers the earlier question, what's the LCCN, the Library of Congress
remembered
control?
right.
Yeah, Library of Congress control number. I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. So this is a unique identifier that identifies a book's bibliographic information for the Library of Congress catalog. Also copyright. That's a form of, oh, I'm sorry, forgot one detail about the Library of Congress. So they sell their records to other libraries to use in their catalogs. So that's, the LCCN number is very beneficial if you want to get your book into libraries and get it into library catalogs to get discovered and circulated in public. Copyright is a part of the intellectual property law that protects your original works of authorship. So that's important to you. You've put in a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and perhaps not a small sum of financial investment to get your work out there. You want to protect it. You want it to be copyrighted. Some additional costs might include hiring a freelance editor or designer. You've written your work at whatever stage, except for maybe the professional traditional publishing who have staff for this. You've chosen some of the earlier options we presented. You may want to, and it may be a good thing, to hire another set of eyes, hire a professional editor, freelance editor, and or designer to go through your work and also make comments and help you with some of the design elements. Then there's professional reviews. So if you want a library to add your book to their collection, you might need a professional review. So a book must fall under the same standards as other items added to the collection, which normally means it must have been reviewed professionally. That's generally how most medium to larger libraries add items to the collection. They go by reviews, and you can pay to have your book reviewed. It doesn't mean it will be a good review. Let's hope it will be, but you have to pay for that. So some of the places where you can find pay for professional reviews is Kirkus Indie Reviews. We have a note here that a traditional review is $425 for Kirkus Indie reviews. So you got some financial outlay there. Publishers Weekly also does professional reviews. They're free, but you are not guaranteed a review if you send in your material. Library Journal also has professional reviews. These are also free, but again, you're not guaranteed to get a review if you send in your work for review. So also you might get help from professionals. So the Association of Professional Genealogists have great resources of through writers, editors, and researchers. You can find their site listed there on the screen. They have a lot of good resources. The American Society for Indexing. So you're wondering, oh my gosh, I got to index this thing. How do I do that? Well, the American Society of Indexing, or for indexing rather, might can help with that. You can search by specific specialty or type of material to be indexed, and you can find a professional that knows how to index genealogy and family history. Because as you would imagine, or maybe you didn't realize, there are folks that specialize in indexing different types of publications. There's different styles and standards uh, um, and forms, depending on what field, what interest area you're publishing in. There's also the Editorial Freelancers Association. Again, you can find a lot of resources for writers, editors, proofreaders, indexers, and researchers, etc. So that's some additional help that you might can find, and you've got their website URL there as well. We have a bibliography here. You have an open history. It's creating family history books by Shelley Bishop. And we also have 6 tips to create family history books they can't put down by Lisa Cook. And I will throw out here as a gratuitous plug for our upcoming genealogy lock-in next Friday, October 17th. There are 2 sessions that deal with providing guides to writing family history books or family narratives. One of the sessions is From Names to Narratives, a simple guide to writing. And one of the others is The Stories of Our Lives, Beginning Your Family History. And that last one there is listed as a beginner. So they're going to, as the description says, discover some straightforward steps to take when starting writing your family history and gathering information. And on the first one I mentioned, that's an intermediate. So you're going to learn the art of biographical writing by weaving historical context, personal anecdotes, family lore, etc., into your ancestor stories. So it'll have some good resources that ties on to what we've presented here, hopefully, for you. Are there any questions that you might have for us at the moment? Oh, you're talking about the genealogy lock-in? Is that what we're talking about in the Zooming the sessions?
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about, is if they
Okay.
can zoom into them.
Yes. So, yes, the genealogy lock-in, all of the sessions are pre-recorded, so they're not live. They're pre-recorded, and if you go through, and Eric, if you can drop our link to our sign up, you have to sign up and register. That way we can email you the link to all the sessions. They're only available for that 24-hour period, the day of that Friday. So 1 minute after midnight, until 11:59 that evening. The sessions for October 17th will be available to view at any time. So you can view them from home, genealogy in your pajamas, or feel free to come watch with us here at Haggard Library in the Genealogy Center's program room.
Yes, and they will not be on Zoom, I believe, since they're pre-recorded. They just or it'll be through YouTube.
Yeah, we just have the links, and I forgot what platform they use. It's just a web link, and you click on that, and it'll start the video.
There will be a schedule for the lock-in. We don't, does Waco have it on their website already?
Waco does have it on their site. The main overall statewide lock-in. Our times is very important. Our times differ for the sessions. The morning sessions up until lunch are the same. We shorten our lunch period just a little bit, abbreviate it so that we can be finished by 6 o'clock when we close instead of 6:30. And we encourage folks to feel free, bring a sack lunch, beverage with a lid, snacks, what have you, and come and sit with us in the Genealogy Center and watch the sessions.
Okay,
Did
yeah,
you
I
get
got.
the question
Yeah,
in the
I
chat?
just saw. Yeah, is there family history narrative examples in the Genealogy Center? Yes.
Good question. Yes.
Depending on what sort of type of book that you would like, we can browse the shelves, try and find some examples that might match what you're looking to write. The genealogy collection does not check out though, so you would have to use those items in the library. But you can also take some photos or make photocopies if you needed.
Yeah, and
Uh,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
we do not have a PDF handout, but this program is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube page, on the Plano Public Library YouTube page, shortly. And so you can go back and watch this, take notes at any time you'd like.
Yeah, I will add, as far as examples of the family history narrative, we do have, it's not on the floor. We have a closed section of the collection that's just family histories. We have there's just too many of them to put on the floor and shelve with everything else. So we have them in the back, but they're in our online catalog. So basically anything that pertains specifically to a named family or allied families that's just about that family, the Smith family or the, you know, Bayer family, whatever. Those are going to be in our closed stacks, but just ask anybody at the desk and we will pull them, be happy to pull them for you. And those, if you talk to one of the genealogy team, we can pull some examples because they range from, I'd imagine some of those are probably professionally published and some are limited published by family associations. Maybe they did them for a special run for a major family reunion because some families have that are large extended families across many states. Sometimes they have a heritage a family history association, and they'll get together and pull together all the ancestry and genealogical information and publish a book at some point of the 150th anniversary of them coming to the country, family reunion. I'm just making that up, but whatever reason, there's a lot of examples that we can probably show of a variety of large and small publications, from everything from just simply listing out their family pedigree to more of narrative histories of tales of outlaws and in-laws and infamous family members. So any other questions for us? Well, if not, thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for sharing your night with us. And hope you found something useful, at
Yes,
least to
and if
get
you
y'all
have
started thinking.
any further questions, you can always, we have a service on our website called Ask PPL. You can submit questions specifically to the genealogy team or put in a book a librarian request where we can spend some more dedicated 30-minute one-on-one time with you and try and help answer your questions. Again, that's all through the website. So if you have any further questions, please submit them that way, and we will be so glad to help try and figure those answers out for you. And like Trey said, thank you so much for coming tonight, and we hope to see you at our next genealogy programs or at the lock-in.